All right, 9.5, inequalities in two variables. So we're looking at last section we talked about graphing equations. And so what I want to do is I want to review that really quick before we actually get into graphing with the inequalities. So we have the equation x plus y equals 4, and we're going to use 0, 1, and 2 to see what happens. So we're going to come back up here. We're going to plug in 0 and see what we get. 0 plus y is y, so we get y equals 4. We try 1. 1 plus y equals 4. Remember that we're doing opposite operations, so if I subtract 1 from this side, 1 minus 1, which is the opposite because here it's a positive 1, opposite operations, subtracting 1. So again, we find that that equals 3. And we plug in 2 for the x. Opposite operations, it's a positive 2, so I'm going to subtract the 2 from both sides. This gives me a 0, 2 minus 2, leaving me with a positive y on this side. 4 minus 2 is 2. So when I come back up here to graph, I'm going 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, and 2, 2. And I grab my ruler and I graph it. Make sure you're putting the arrows on the end because the line is supposed to go on forever. Okay, so this time let's look at an inequality. So we have 2x minus y is greater than 5. We're actually going to treat it like it's an equal sign to find the points just like we did just now, and then I'll show you what happens because it's greater than. So we're going to see what happens when x is 0. We get 0 minus y equals 5. Remember that it's a negative y here, so you want to be really careful. 0 minus y is negative y. You can either multiply or divide by a negative at this point to get rid of that negative. We need the y alone. It can't have anything with it. So I'm going to multiply times negative 1. And this is a negative times a negative is a positive. 1 times y is y. Positive times a negative is a negative. 1 times 5 is 5. So 0 would give me negative 5. Now we'll go ahead and we'll plug in 1. So 2 times 1 minus y equals 5. Draw our mirror. Here we get 2 minus y equals 5. Opposite operation. It is a subtraction problem, but the 2 is positive. So the opposite of a positive 2 is a negative 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. Bring down the minus y. 5 minus 2 is 3. We want to get rid of that negative y. So the same thing again. I'm going to multiply this side times negative 1. And I'm going to multiply this side times negative 1. So here I get a negative times a negative is a positive y. Negative times a positive is a negative. 3 times 1 is 3. So negative 3. All right. So now we're looking at 2. We're going to do the same exact thing. I think I'm going to do it right over here. 2 times 2 minus y equals 5. Go ahead and solve it. So now we're looking at minus the 4 from both sides. Negative 4 and positive 4 makes 0. Negative y, and then 5 minus 4 is 1. Multiplying by that negative 1. Negative times a negative is a positive. 1 times y is y. Negative times a positive is negative. 1 times 1 is 1. So we're looking at those points. So let's go ahead and graph just the points. 0, negative 5. 1, negative 3. 2, negative 1. Now, we did that to find those points. Now we're looking at the fact that we have an inequality. It's not an equal sign. If there's no equal, it's just greater than, then you have to make a dashed line. The equal would mean that the numbers on the line would also work as a solution, and because there's a greater than and no equal, then the line itself is not going to be part of the solution. Now we need to decide, we're going to have to be coloring in one side or the other on this because it's saying greater than the 5. So I like to use 0, 0. If it's not on the line you just drew, you can use 0, 0 anytime you want. So let's plug it in. X times, or 2 times 0 minus 0 is greater than 5. So I get 0 minus 0, so 0 is greater than 5. Well, 0 is not greater than 5. So that means on the side that has the 5, or the 0, 0, pardon me, it doesn't work because it was false. So I'm going to color on the side that would work, away from the false. Okay, so here's another one. We're going to graph. We're going to pretend it's an equal sign. We're going to plug that 0 in for x and see what happens. Well, 0 minus 1 is negative 1. Fairly easy one. Let's try it and see what happens when x is 1. I get 1 minus 1, which is 0. And then what happens if x is 2? And 2 minus 1 is 1. So we have the point 0, negative 1, 1, 0, and 2, 1. There is an equal sign, so it's greater than or equal. So that means I'm going to actually make my line a solid line because the equal sign says that works as well. Again, my point 0, 0 is not on the line, so I'm going to plug 0, 0 in and see if it works. And if it does work, then great. It means it's true. If it doesn't work, it's not a big deal. We'll fix it. So 0 is greater than or equal to negative 1. Well, 0 is greater than or equal to negative 1. So 0, 0 did work. So we're going to color in that side because 0, 0 did work. The next one we're doing is y minus 3x is less than 0. So again, we're going to treat it like an equal sign, and we're going to plug in our points. So y minus 3 times 0 equals 0. Y minus 0, so y equals 0. So this ends up being y minus 0, which is y. So if the x is 0, the y is 0. So now we come back into here and we go, what happens if the x is 1? Excuse me, that should be an equal sign. There we go. So y minus 3 equals 0. Again, we have our mirror, opposite operations. We're going to say minus 3, the opposite is adding 3 to both sides. This equals 0, and I'm left with y equals 3. Now we have 2, y minus 3 times 2 equals 0. Y minus 6 equals 0. Opposite operations, add the 6 to both sides. This is a 0. We're left with y equals 6. So we have 0, 0, 1, 3, and 2, 6. There is no equal sign, so we're only looking at a dashed line at this point. Okay. We have to decide if we color this side of the graph or this side. Well, 0, 0 is on the line, so I got to pick a different one. I'm going to pick 1, 1 right there. So let's see if it works. So if y is 1 and x is 1, I get 1 minus 3 is less than 0, and 1 minus 3 is negative 2 is less than 0. And negative 2 is less than 0. So that means on the side where my 1, 1 was, I get to color in because it did work. Okay, so now we have a couple of special ones we want to look at. What happens when there's only an x or there's only a y? So remember, we're going to treat it like an equal sign. And what I have is x equals 0. X equals 0. So that means no matter what, x is going to equal 0. So if I plug it in, I find that y can be anything because it doesn't matter. X equals 0. Everything else goes right along with it. So 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. So my graph, and I'm going to use my highlighter so you can see that the dashed lines, my graph, since it's greater than, no equal, my line itself is right here on the y-axis. So now we pick a point and see if it works. So let's pick 1, 1 right there. So x is 1. There is no y. So is 1 greater than x? Of course it is. So the 1 worked, this point worked, and I'm going to color in this side of my graph. The next one we're going to look at is what happens when there's just a y. So again, we're going to think of it as an equal sign. Y equals 2. That means no matter what I do, y equals 2. Now I just have to come up with numbers for x. No matter what I do, y equals 2. So 0, 1, 2. 0, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2. There is an equal sign, so that means I do need a solid line. We figure out what side we're coloring in. Well, 0, 0 is not part of it, so I'm going to use 0, 0. Y is 0 less than or equal to 2. Well, 0 is less than 2. So on the side that the 0, 0 is on, we get to color in. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, if you think you've got this down, you can go ahead and stop the video, try a couple of problems and see how you do. If you think you still need time or a couple more examples, I'm doing 2 more examples. And so if that'll help you, stay on with me. If not, go ahead and try. So right now we're looking at the inequality 2x plus y is greater than 8. So remember, we're going to treat it like it's an equal sign. We're going to plug in the x is 0. And I get 0 plus y is y equals 8. So now let's plug in the 1. We get 2 plus y equals 8. I forgot to draw my line. Everything I do on the left, I got to do on the right. It's a positive 2, and it's an addition problem. Opposite of a positive 2 is a negative 2. This is a 0, and this is a y. 8 minus 2 is 6. And then we're going to plug in the 2. So 2 times 2 plus y equals 8. I get 4 plus y equals to 8. Opposite operations, subtract that 4 from both sides. 4 minus 4 is 0. Y equals 4. Okay, so now let's graph that. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8's right up here. Just about to fall off my paper. So 1, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2, 4. There is no equal sign, so that means that I'm going to be doing a dashed, I spell there, dashed line. I need to see which side I'm going to color in, so I'm going to use 0, 0 because it's not on that line. So when I come up here, I get 2 times 0 plus 0 is greater than 8. 0 plus 0 is 0. And 0 is not greater than 8. So where the 0, 0 is, I'm not coloring in because 0, 0 did not work. So we color in all this side. Our last problem we're going to look at is 5x plus 4y is greater than or equal to 20. So I'm going to go ahead and make my t-chart. I'm going to use 0, 1, and 2. I'm going to plug it in. So 5 times 0 plus 4 times y equals 20. Remember, treat it like an equal sign. 0 plus 4y is 4y. Opposite operations, it's 4 times y, so I'm going to divide. Y equals 5. Okay, now we're going to plug in x is 1. 5 plus 4y equals 20. Draw my line. Opposite operations, we do addition and subtraction first. This is a positive 5. We're going to subtract that 5 from both sides. This did give me 0. 4y equals 15. I am going to divide by 4 and have a fraction, but it's not a big deal. I leave it as 15/4 right now. And then I do one more. I'm going to do 5 times 2 plus 4y equals 20. I get 10 plus 4y equals 20. Draw my mirror. Subtract that 10 from both sides. This does equal 0, so I get 4y equals 10. Divide by 4, so I get 10/4, which if I simplify that, that's 5 over 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So I put 5 over 2. Now I'm going to write these as mixed numbers because it'll be a lot easier to graph. So 4 goes into 15 3 times. That's 12 with 3 left over. So 3 out of 4. Down here, 2 goes into 5 2 times with 1 left over. So let's graph that. 0, 5. 1 and 3 3/4. So 1, 1, 2, 3. Here would be 3 half. So it's like right about there, 3 3/4. And then 2, 2.5 puts me right there. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be pretty far, pretty close. They're right there. There is an equals part, so I do not need to dash it. It should be solid. 0, 0 is not on the line that I just drew, so I can plug it in. 5 times 0 plus 4 times 0 is greater than or equal to 20. 0 plus 0 is 0, and 0 is not greater than 20. So since the 0, 0 did not work, I'm going to go ahead and color up above the line.